The war drums had fallen silent 3 months early. Emperor Kyle flew through the palace gates with wings that still smelled of smoke and battle. His black scales gleamed under the twin suns of Draconhelm as he descended toward the Grand Terrace. The war against the rebel systems had been shorter than expected, much shorter. His dragon armies had crushed the uprising with such speed that even Kale himself felt surprised. He landed with a heavy thud that shook the marble stones beneath his clawed feet. The ceremonial guard stood at attention, but something felt wrong. Their eyes kept drifting toward the east wing of the palace. Kale's golden eyes narrowed. In his 800 years of life, he had learned to notice when things were out of place. "Where is Lord Taman?" Kale's voice rumbled like distant thunder. One of the guards stammered. "In the East Wing, Your Majesty." He said he would come immediately when you arrived, but there was a situation with... With what? Kale demanded. The guard's mouth opened and closed like a fish. No words came out. Kale snorted smoke from his nostrils and walked past him. His heavy footsteps echoed through the palace corridors. As he moved deeper into the building, he heard something that made him stop completely. Music. Someone was singing. In 800 years, Kyle had never heard singing in his palace. The palace was a place of dignity, tradition, and proper dragon behavior. Dragons did not sing while they worked. They certainly did not sing in languages that were not draconic. Kale followed the sound to the Grand Library. His heart began to beat faster, but not from fear, from anger. The Grand Library had been sealed for 200 years. No servant had been able to maintain it properly. The ancient texts were too delicate. The ceiling frescoes were impossible to reach without damaging them. The environmental controls were too complex. So Kale had ordered it closed, preserved in time until some future generation found a solution. The doors to the library stood wide open. Kale stepped inside and froze. The library looked completely different. Every surface gleamed with cleanliness. The ancient texts sat on shelves in perfect order, organized in a way that made immediate sense. The ceiling frescoes sparkled like new, their colors bright and clear. The air itself felt perfect. Not too dry, not too humid. Exactly right for preserving old books and scrolls. And there, floating on some kind of platform near the ceiling, was a small human woman. She was cleaning the crystal panels with careful, gentle movements, and she was singing in her native language, the human tongue from Earth. "What is this?" Kale's voice boomed through the library like an explosion. The human woman screamed and nearly fell off her platform. The platform wobbled but held steady. She grabbed a control device and slowly descended to the floor. When she reached the ground, she dropped to her knees immediately, pressing her forehead to the marble. "Your Majesty, I did not expect you back so soon. The report said 3 more months at least. I wanted to finish before... Who gave you permission to enter the Grand Library?" Kale stepped closer. His shadow covered her completely. "The steward, Jiwoo. He said the East Wing was my responsibility. He said I could maintain it as I saw fit, as long as I did not damage anything." Her voice shook, but she kept talking. "Your Majesty, I have been very careful. I have damaged nothing. I have records of every step I took. I can show you..." "Stand up," Kale commanded. The human woman stood slowly. She was tiny compared to him, barely reaching the middle of his chest even when he was in his humanoid form. Her name tag said Yuna in both Draconic and human script. She kept her eyes down, as was proper for a servant. "Look at me," Kale said. She raised her eyes. They were dark brown, filled with fear but also with something else. Determination, pride. Kale could not quite identify it. "You reorganized my library," he said slowly. "Yes, Your Majesty." "How?" I could not stand the waste, Your Majesty." The words came out in a rush. Such beautiful books, such important history, just sitting here unused. Locked away. I thought perhaps if I was very careful, if I studied the proper methods, if I worked slowly. "You worked alone?" "Mostly, Your Majesty. Sometimes the cleaning drones helped, but I programmed them myself. I built the floating platform from spare parts in the maintenance bay. I created a cataloging system on my datapad. It is just a simple spreadsheet, nothing fancy, but it tracks every book, every scroll, their condition, their location." Kale stared at her. A spreadsheet? He knew the word, but had never bothered to use such a thing. Dragons had perfect memories. Why would they need to write everything down in organized lists? "Show me this spreadsheet," he said. Yuna pulled out a small human device from her pocket. Her fingers moved across its surface quickly. She held it up for him to see. The screen showed rows and columns of information, neatly organized, color-coded by importance and condition. Kale could see at a glance what the library contained, what needed repair, what was most valuable. It was efficient, terribly beautifully efficient. "How long did this take you?" Kale asked quietly. 3 months, Your Majesty. Since you left for the war, I have worked every day, sometimes through the night when I could not sleep. Before Kale could respond, he heard rapid footsteps behind him. Lord Taman rushed into the library, his silver scales flashing with reflected light. Behind him came Jiwoo, the old steward who had served the palace for 300 years. "Your Majesty," Taman gasped for breath. "I tried to inform you before you saw, that is, I wanted to explain." "Explain what?" Kyle turned his golden eyes on his second-in-command. "Explain why a human maid has accomplished what 3 centuries of dragon servants could not." Taman's mouth opened, but no words came out. Jiwoo stepped forward, bowing deeply. "Your Majesty, if I may speak? I have prepared reports on the changes throughout the East Wing. When you left for war, you gave me authority to manage the palace as I saw fit. I gave Yuna permission to try her methods. The results have been—" The old dragon paused, searching for words. "Extraordinary." "Show me these reports," Kale demanded. Jiwoo pulled out a data tablet, much larger and more official than Yuna's simple device. He handed it to the Emperor with both hands. Kale read in silence. His eyes grew wider with each page. Power consumption in the East Wing, down 40%. Maintenance costs reduced by half. Staff satisfaction surveys, the highest in recorded history. Worker efficiency, improved by 35%. And detailed reports on every section of the East Wing, all showing dramatic improvements. The Grand Library was just one example. Yuna had reorganized the storage rooms, optimized the cleaning schedules, repaired systems that had been broken for years, and created detailed maintenance protocols that anyone could follow. Kale looked up from the tablet. He stared at Yuna, then at the reports, then back at Yuna. His mind struggled to process what he was seeing. This small human, this member of a species that his empire had conquered and subjugated, had done what centuries of dragon servants had failed to do. How? The word came out as barely a whisper. Yuna swallowed nervously. "Your Majesty, I simply used basic efficiency protocols from my home world. On Earth, humans learned long ago that organization and planning can accomplish more than raw effort. We are not as strong as dragons, so we had to become smart about how we use our energy." "You are saying my palace was inefficient?" Kyle's voice dropped to a dangerous growl. "No, Your Majesty." Yuna held up her hands. "Your palace is magnificent, but magnificence and efficiency are different things. A beautiful building can still have better workflows. A powerful empire can still benefit from better organization. I meant no disrespect. I only wanted to be useful." Kyle looked at the library again. He looked at the reports in his hands. He thought about the 800 years he had ruled this empire, always believing that dragon strength and dragon tradition were enough. Maybe he had been wrong. "You will come with me tomorrow," Kyle said finally. "I want you to show me everything you have changed, everything you have improved, and then you will explain to me exactly how you did it." "Yes, Your Majesty." Yuna bowed deeply. As Kale turned to leave, he stopped at the doorway. Without looking back, he said, "The library looks better than I remember it, better than it looked even when it was new." He walked out before anyone could see the confusion on his face. For the first time in 800 years, Emperor Kale felt like a student instead of a master. And the teacher was a human maid who could not stand to see things go to waste. The next morning arrived too quickly for Yuna. She had barely slept, her mind racing with worry about what the Emperor would say. She dressed in her simple maid uniform and waited outside the throne room as ordered. Her hands would not stop shaking. When the doors finally opened, Lord Taman emerged and gestured for her to follow. They walked through corridor after corridor with Taman saying nothing. His silver scales caught the morning light streaming through the tall windows. Yuna had to take 2 steps for every one of his just to keep up. They entered a large meeting room where Emperor Kale sat studying 3 data tablets at once. His black scales looked almost blue in the bright light. He glanced up as they entered. "Sit," he commanded, pointing to a chair across from him. Yuna sat carefully on the edge of the seat. The chair was built for dragons, so her feet barely touched the floor. Explain your methods, Kale said simply. Start from the beginning. How did you know what to change? Yuna took a deep breath. Your Majesty, I started by watching. For 2 weeks I just watched how things worked in the East Wing. I saw the cleaning crews going to the same places every day, whether they needed cleaning or not. I saw the maintenance workers fixing the same problems over and over because nobody addressed the root cause. I saw supplies stored far away from where they were actually used. She pulled out her datapad and showed him her notes. I made lists of everything I observed. Then I asked questions. I asked the workers what frustrated them most about their jobs. What took the most time? What felt like wasted effort? Kale leaned forward slightly. And they told you? Eventually, yes. At first they were suspicious, but I explained that I genuinely wanted to understand. I was not there to judge them or report them. I wanted to help make their work easier. Why would you care about making their work easier? Timon asked from where he stood by the door. Yuna turned to look at him. Because when work is easier, people do it better. When people are not exhausted and frustrated, they make fewer mistakes. Happy workers are better workers. This is something humans learned a long time ago. She turned back to Kale. After I understood the problems, I made plans. Small plans at first. I reorganized one storage room to test my ideas. When that worked, I did another. Each success gave me confidence to try something bigger. Kyle studied her quietly for a long moment. Then he stood up suddenly, his full height making the room feel smaller. I want you to prove your methods work beyond the East Wing. The Armory Wing has been in chaos for decades. Reorganize it. You have 2 weeks. Yuna felt the blood drain from her face. The Armory Wing? But Your Majesty, I know nothing about weapons or... You knew nothing about ancient libraries either. Kyle interrupted. Yet here we are. 2 weeks. Lord Taman will provide whatever resources you need. Before Yuna could protest further, Kale walked out of the room. She sat frozen in her chair, her mind spinning with panic. Taman approached her slowly. The Armory Wing stores weapons from across the Empire. Some are thousands of years old. Some are so powerful they could destroy cities. The Emperor is giving you a great honor by trusting you with this task. Or setting me up to fail, Yuna whispered. Perhaps, Taman admitted, but I watched you transform the East Wing. If you can do that again, you will prove something important to everyone in this palace. He paused, including yourself. The next day, Yuna stood at the entrance to the Armory Wing with a small team assembled by Taman. 3 dragon warriors who had been injured in the recent war, 2 palace maintenance workers, and a young dragon scholar named Hana, who had heard about Yuna's methods and volunteered to help. The armory was massive and completely disorganized. Weapons lay everywhere on shelves on the floor leaning against walls. Some were still in their cases. Others were unwrapped and exposed to air. A meteor had struck this section of the palace 40 years ago, damaging the storage systems, and nobody had properly reorganized since then. Where do we even start? One of the warriors asked, his voice full of doubt. Yuna pulled out her datapad and a measuring tape. We start by asking questions. Tell me about your work here. What frustrates you most? For the next 2 hours, she listened. The warriors complained about not being able to find weapons quickly. The maintenance workers talked about how the damaged environmental controls caused some weapons to rust or decay. Hana mentioned that the catalog system was hundreds of years old and missing information on thousands of items. Yuna wrote everything down. Then she asked, if you could change one thing about this armory, what would it be? The answers surprised her. Nobody mentioned grand renovations or expensive new equipment. They wanted simple things, better labels, weapons grouped by type instead of by age, a clear path to walk through without tripping over things, a system to track which weapons needed maintenance. We can do all of that, Yuna said with growing confidence. Let me show you how. She introduced them to something she called a priority matrix. Together they listed every problem in the armory, then rated each one by how urgent it was and how important it was. This created 4 categories. Urgent and important. Important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and neither urgent nor important. We work on urgent and important things first, Yuna explained. Then important but not urgent. The other categories can wait. One of the warriors, whose name was Gunho, stared at the matrix she had drawn. This makes sense, he said slowly. We have been trying to fix everything at once. That is why nothing gets fixed. Over the next days, the team worked together in ways they never had before. Yuna taught them about parallel work. Instead of doing tasks one after another, they could do multiple tasks at the same time if they planned carefully. She created standard procedures for cataloging weapons. She designed a new storage layout using materials already available in the palace. She set up a rotation schedule so everyone learned every job, which meant nobody was stuck doing the same boring task forever. The injured warriors discovered something unexpected. Yuna's methods accommodated their disabilities. Gunho had lost part of his wing and could not fly well anymore, but Yuna designed ground-level systems so flying was not necessary. Another warrior, Insu, had trouble with his left arm, so Yuna arranged tools within easy reach of his right side. In dragon culture, which prized strength above all else, these warriors had felt useless. But here, doing work that mattered, using methods designed around their actual abilities instead of their former abilities, they felt valuable again. By day 10, the armory looked completely different. Weapons were organized by type and size. Clear pathways allowed easy movement. Environmental controls maintained perfect conditions. A digital catalog tracked every item's location and maintenance needs. That was when Master Weaponsmith Doyen arrived. He was ancient even by dragon standards, over 600 years old. His red scales had faded to dull orange. He walked with a cane carved from meteoric iron, but his eyes were sharp and his reputation was legendary. He had forged weapons for the imperial family for centuries. "I have heard disturbing rumors," Doyen announced as he entered the armory. "A human is reorganizing the imperial weapons. This is an insult to dragon craftsmanship." Yuna bowed deeply. "Master Doyen, I mean no insult. I am only organizing the storage, not judging the weapons themselves. Your work is far beyond my understanding." "Words are cheap," Doyen growled. He pulled a rolled paper from his robe and spread it on a nearby table. "Here are 3 legendary weapons. The Starfire Blade, forged in the heart of a dying sun. The Thunder Spear, which can call lightning from clear skies. The Shadow Shield, which makes its bearer invisible to enemy eyes." He looked directly at Yuna with his sharp eyes. "These weapons are somewhere in this armory. Find all 3 within 1 hour. If you succeed, perhaps your organization has merit. If you fail, admit that this work should be left to dragons." 1 hour to search through thousands of weapons? Yuna felt panic rising in her chest. But then she remembered her digital catalog. Every weapon they had processed was in her system now, with detailed descriptions and exact locations. She pulled out her datapad and opened the catalog application. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen, typing in search terms. Within seconds, results appeared. "Starfire Blade, Section C, Shelf 12, Position 4, she read aloud. She walked directly to that location and pulled out an ornate sword case. She opened it carefully, revealing a blade that seemed to glow with inner light. Doyen's eyes widened slightly, but he said nothing. "Thunder Spear, Section A, Wall Mount 7. Yuna walked to the wall where ceremonial weapons hung in special displays. The spear crackled with faint electricity even in its dormant state. "Shadow Shield, Section D, Secure Vault 3. Yuna led them to a locked vault, which Taman opened with his command codes. Inside, among other precious items, sat a shield that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Yuna presented all 3 weapons to Doyen. 12 minutes. "Master Doyen, not 1 hour." The old weaponsmith examined each weapon carefully, checking for any damage or mishandling. Finding none, he looked at Yuna's datapad with interest. "Show me how this system works," he said quietly. For the next hour, Yuna explained her catalog, how it tracked not just location but also maintenance history, original maker, age, special properties, and related weapons. Word spread through the palace faster than wildfire. The legendary Master Doyen had become a student of the human Maid. Dragons whispered about it in the corridors. Servants from other wings came to see the transformed armory with their own eyes. Within days, department heads began appearing at Yuna's door with requests for help. The head chef, a large dragon named Minho, arrived first. He bowed formally to Yuna, which felt strange since she was still technically just a maid. "The Imperial kitchens feed 3,000 people daily," Minho explained. "But we waste enormous amounts of food. Supplies arrive late or spoil before we can use them. The cooking staff argues constantly about whose responsibility is what. I have heard you can fix such problems." Yuna visited the kitchens and spent 3 days observing. She noticed that vegetables were stored far from the preparation area, forcing cooks to walk back and forth hundreds of times per day. The meal planning system did not account for which ingredients would spoil first. Multiple cooks prepared the same dishes without coordinating, leading to either too much food or not enough. She introduced Minho to inventory management and workflow optimization. Within 2 weeks, food waste dropped by 30%. The cooking staff stopped arguing because everyone knew exactly what their job was. Meals came out on time every time. Next came Somin, who managed the palace gardens. Plants are dying in some sections while others grow too wild, she complained. I do not understand why. We water them all the same, give them the same care. Yuna knew nothing about gardening, but she knew about observation and problem solving. She walked through the gardens with Somin, asking questions about sunlight, soil, drainage, and which plants had been successful in the past. Together, they discovered that Somin was treating all plants the same way, even though different plants needed different care. Yuna helped her create a rotating schedule that matched each plant's specific needs. She also suggested keeping records of what worked and what did not, so future gardeners would not have to relearn the same lessons. Even the military quartermaster came calling. His name was Jinwoo, and he looked exhausted. Supply lines for our armies are a disaster, he admitted. Equipment arrives at the wrong bases. Soldiers receive supplies meant for different divisions. Everything is always late. Yuna spent a week working with Jinwoo, teaching him about supply chain management and tracking systems. She helped him create a network of checkpoints where supplies were verified and redirected if necessary. She designed forms that were actually easy to fill out. Not the complicated 20-page documents that everyone hated, but not everyone was pleased with these changes. High Counselor Bora called a formal council meeting. She was an ancient dragon with pure white scales and cold blue eyes. She had advised emperors for 400 years and believed deeply in dragon superiority. This human's influence grows too quickly, Bora announced to the assembled council. She changes traditions that have stood for centuries. She teaches dragons to follow human methods. She rises far above her station as a conquered servant. The results cannot be argued with, Lord Taman countered. Efficiency across the palace has improved dramatically. Costs are down. Satisfaction is up. Today she reorganizes kitchens and gardens, Bora said coldly. Tomorrow she will claim the right to advise on military strategy or diplomatic policy. We are setting a dangerous precedent. If one human can rise so high, what message does that send to the billions of humans across our empire? What happens when they start believing they are our equals? Several older council members nodded in agreement. Younger ones looked uncertain. Emperor Kale sat on his throne, listening to both sides argue. Finally, he raised one clawed hand for silence. High Counselor Bora raises valid concerns about precedent and tradition, but she has not addressed the fundamental question: are Yuna's methods effective? Does her work benefit the empire? That is not the point, Bora began. That is exactly the point, Kale interrupted. We are not a museum preserving the past. We are a living empire that must adapt to survive. If human methods make us stronger, then we would be fools to reject them out of pride. He stood, his massive form commanding attention. I will investigate this matter personally. For 1 week I will observe Yuna's work directly. Then I will make my judgment. The next morning Yuna received a message that made her hands shake. The Emperor himself would shadow her for the entire week. Everything she did, everywhere she went, he would be watching. It was the most stressful week of Yuna's life. Kale followed her silently as she made her rounds. He watched her teach a class on project management to junior palace officials. He observed as she helped 2 department heads resolve a resource conflict using something she called active listening, where both sides explained their needs and worked together to find solutions instead of competing. He noticed how she treated everyone the same way, whether they were dragons, humans, or any other species. She spoke to the lowest cleaning worker with the same respect she showed to Master Doyen. She did not see a hierarchy of species. She saw individuals with different skills and challenges. On the 3rd day, Kale finally spoke to her directly. They were alone in the garden where Somin's new methods were already showing results. Do you not fear us? Kyle asked suddenly. We conquered your world. I could kill you with 1 claw. Yet you walk through this palace as if you belong here. Yuna considered the question carefully. She knew her answer mattered greatly. Your Majesty, fear and respect are different things. I respect your power. I respect your long life and experience. I respect what you have built. But fear would make me useless to you. If I was afraid to suggest improvements, afraid to try new things, afraid to speak honestly, then I could not do my job well. And what do you think your job is? Kyle asked. To make things better, Una said simply. Whatever I touch, wherever I work, I try to leave it better than I found it. Not because anyone forces me to, because it feels good to solve problems and help people. Kyle was silent for a long time, watching the new garden growth. In 800 years, he finally said, no servant has ever spoken to me the way you do. Most are too afraid. Some are too proud. You are neither afraid nor proud. You are practical. Is that a good thing, Your Majesty? I am still deciding, Kale admitted. On the 7th day, Kale made his announcement. He called another council meeting, this time with Una present. She stood before the assembled dragons, feeling very small and very human. I have observed Una's methods extensively, Kale declared. I have seen her work, spoken with those she has taught, and examined the results. My conclusion is this. What she does is valuable to the Empire. Bora leaned forward. Your Majesty, surely you are not suggesting I am creating a new position, Kale continued. Imperial Systems Coordinator. Una will travel to 3 struggling colonies within the Empire to implement her organizational methods. If she succeeds, we will expand the program further. The council erupted in shocked conversation. A human given Imperial authority? Traveling to colonies as an official representative? This was unprecedented. This is madness. Bora stood, her white scales seeming to glow with anger. You will undermine everything our empire stands for. Our empire stands for strength, Kale said firmly. And I have learned that strength comes in many forms. Physical power is one form, but organizational efficiency, systematic problem-solving, and genuine care for all citizens, these are also forms of strength. Una possesses strengths that we dragons have overlooked. He looked directly at Una. Lord Taman will accompany you as military escort and official liaison. You leave in 3 days for the mining colony of Taihon 7. Governor Hyunwoo has been informed of your arrival. After the meeting, as Una walked back to her quarters in a daze, Hana caught up with her. You made history today, the young scholar said excitedly. The first human to hold imperial rank. The first conquered species member to be given authority over dragon citizens. Do you understand how big this is? I am starting to, Una admitted. And it terrifies me. Good, Hana said. That means you understand the responsibility. But I have watched you work. You will do well. 3 days later, Una stood in the palace landing bay with a small bag of belongings. Lord Taman waited beside the imperial transport ship, his silver scales gleaming in the morning light. Ready? He asked. No, Una said honestly. But I will do my best anyway. They boarded the ship and launched toward the stars. Through the viewport, Una watched the palace grow smaller below them. Somewhere in that palace, she knew, High Counselor Bora was planning something. The old dragon had not accepted defeat. She would find a way to prove that elevating humans was a mistake. But Una could not worry about that now. She had a colony to help, problems to solve, and methods to prove. The mining colony of Taihon 7 awaited. The trip took 2 days. When they finally approached Taihon 7, Una pressed her face against the viewport to see. The planet looked harsh, gray and rocky, with massive mining operations scarring the surface. Enormous processing facilities belched smoke into the thin atmosphere. They landed at the colony's main settlement. Governor Hyunwoo met them at the landing pad. He was an older dragon with dark green scales and a skeptical expression. Imperial Systems Coordinator. He said the title like it tasted bad. Taihon 7 was worse than Una had imagined. For 3 days she toured the mining facilities with Governor Hyunwoo, and everywhere she looked she saw problems stacked on top of problems. The mines themselves were dangerous. Support beams were placed incorrectly. Safety equipment was old and poorly maintained. Warning systems failed regularly. Workers, mostly humans, insectoids, and other non-dragon species, moved through the tunnels with the tired eyes of people who expected accidents to happen. The processing facilities were no better. Machinery broke down constantly because maintenance was reactive instead of preventive. Nobody fixed things until they stopped working completely. The workers operated equipment designed for dragon strength and size, which meant everyone else struggled with tools that did not fit their bodies. Housing for workers was cramped and uncomfortable. The cafeteria served food that was nutritious but tasteless. Recreation facilities barely existed. People worked, ate, and slept with nothing else to break the monotony, you see? Governor Hyunwoo said on the third day. This is not like your palace. These are real problems that cannot be fixed with better organization. Yuna had been taking notes constantly, filling her datapad with observations. She had also been doing something else, talking to workers. She interviewed miners during their breaks. She asked maintenance workers about their frustrations. She sat in the cafeteria and listened to conversations. And slowly a picture formed in her mind. Governor, may I present my findings? She asked. They gathered in Hyunwoo's office. The governor, Lord Taemin, the mine foreman, the head of maintenance, and the facility managers. Yuna stood before them with her datapad, feeling nervous but determined. The core problem, she began, is that this entire operation was designed by dragons for dragons. But 80% of your workforce is not dragons. They are humans, insectoids, and other species with very different physical capabilities and needs. The mine foreman, a dragon named Sheol, snorted. Of course it was designed by dragons. We are the superior species. Others should adapt to our standards. With respect, Yuna said carefully. How is that working for you? Your productivity is 30% below quota. Equipment breaks constantly because workers cannot operate it properly. Injuries are high because safety systems assume dragon strength and reflexes. She pulled up charts on her datapad. I have calculated the costs. Medical treatment for injuries, replacement of broken equipment, lost productivity from accidents. It adds up to more money than it would cost to adapt your systems to accommodate different species. Governor Hyunwoo leaned forward, suddenly interested. Show me those numbers. Yuna displayed her calculations. She had been thorough, accounting for every expense. The numbers were stark and undeniable. The colony was losing enormous amounts of money by refusing to adapt. What do you propose? Hyunwoo asked slowly. Let me work with your maintenance and safety teams for 2 weeks, Yuna said. Give me permission to make changes. If productivity does not improve, I will leave and admit failure. Hyunwoo considered this. His pride wanted to refuse, but his practical side looked at those cost calculations and could not argue with the math. 2 weeks, he agreed. But you will have limited resources. We cannot afford expensive renovations. I do not need expensive renovations, Yuna said. I need permission to think differently. The work began immediately. Yuna gathered volunteers from different species and asked them to help redesign their own work environments. She did not tell them what to do. She asked them what they needed. A human miner named Kyung-ho suggested shorter shifts with more breaks, explaining that humans tired faster than dragons but recovered faster too. An insectoid maintenance worker named Chitk showed her how their species' multiple limbs could handle delicate repairs that dragons struggled with. If only the tools were sized correctly, together they made changes. They adjusted equipment heights and controls. They redesigned safety harnesses to fit different body types. They created work schedules that matched each species' natural rhythms, instead of forcing everyone to follow dragon patterns. They set up preventive maintenance schedules so equipment was serviced before it broke. They organized tools logically so workers did not waste time searching. They improved lighting in the tunnels because species with weaker night vision than dragons needed it. None of these changes were expensive. Most just required thinking about problems from different perspectives. The results came quickly. Productivity began to climb. Equipment failures decreased. Workers seemed less exhausted and more engaged. For the first time in years, the colony started to feel like progress was possible. Then, on the 10th day, disaster struck. Yuna was in the main processing facility when alarms began to blare. Workers ran past her, shouting in multiple languages. She grabbed Kyung-ho as he rushed by. What happened? Tunnel collapse in Mine 7, he gasped. 30 workers trapped, including the governor's son. Yuna ran toward the mine command center with Lord Taemin right behind her. Inside, she found chaos. Rescue coordinators argued over the best approach. Dragon workers prepared heavy equipment. Everyone was shouting at once. Governor Hyunwoo stood in the center of the chaos, his scales pale with fear. How long until we reach them? He demanded. 48 hours using standard excavation, the rescue coordinator reported. We need to reinforce as we dig or risk another collapse. How much air do they have? Hyunwoo's voice shook. 36 hours at most. The room went silent. 36 hours of air, 48 hours to dig. The math was simple and terrible. Yuna pushed forward through the crowd. May I see the rescue plan? Now is not the time for your organizational theories, human, the rescue coordinator snapped. Let her look, Hyunwoo said desperately. Let anyone who might help look? Yuna studied the plans quickly, her mind racing. She saw the problem immediately. They were planning to dig straight down through the strongest rock because that was the most direct path. But direct did not always mean fastest. You are going through the hardest material, she said. What if we approach from an angle through softer rock? It would be a longer path but faster digging. That would be structurally unstable, the rescue coordinator argued. Not if we reinforce differently, Yuna countered. She grabbed a stylus and began sketching on the display. Look, if we dig from 3 different angles instead of 1, we can reach them faster and the multiple tunnels actually support each other. And if we use rotating teams with optimized rest periods, we can work continuously without exhausting anyone. 3 tunnels means 3 times the resources, someone objected. No, Yuna said firmly. 3 tunnels means redundancy. If one faces problems, the others continue. And we can coordinate the team so they support each other. She looked at Hyunwoo directly. Your son is down there. Let me try. Hyunwoo looked at the traditional plan, then at Yuna's sketches, then at the clock showing time slipping away. He made his decision. Do it. Everyone follows the human's plan. Anyone who argues with her will answer to me personally. The rescue operation became Yuna's to command. She divided workers into specialized teams. Diggers, reinforcement crews, medical standby, communication relays. She positioned species based on their strengths. Insectoids could navigate tight spaces. Humans had endurance for steady digging. Dragons provided raw power when needed. She implemented strict rotation schedules. Nobody worked until they collapsed. Fresh teams replaced tired ones precisely every 4 hours. She set up communication protocols so everyone knew exactly what was happening. She stayed awake, coordinating everything, solving problems as they emerged. Lord Taman watched her transform from a nervous maid into a determined commander. She made decisions quickly, adapted when things did not work, and never let doubt slow her down. 20 hours into the operation, Tunnel 2 hit a pocket of unstable rock. Traditional thinking would have abandoned it. Yuna redirected those workers to support Tunnel 1 instead, turning a setback into an advantage. 30 hours in, they were ahead of schedule but running out of time. The trapped workers' air supply had to be nearly gone. Keep digging, Yuna ordered. We are close. At hour 34, with 2 hours of air remaining, Tunnel 3 broke through. Medical teams rushed in immediately. All 30 workers were alive, though several had injuries from the initial collapse. Governor Hyunwoo's son was pulled out unconscious but breathing. The rescue was successful. Everyone survived. Hyunwoo stood in the mine command center watching his son being carried to medical treatment. Then he turned to Yuna, and to everyone's shock, the governor dropped to one knee. You saved my son's life. You saved 30 lives. I doubted you, dismissed you, and you proved me completely wrong. I will implement every change you recommend without question. More than that, I will tell every governor in the empire about what you have done here. Yuna felt tears on her cheeks, exhaustion and relief overwhelming her. I just did what needed to be done. No, Hyunwoo said firmly. You did what we could not imagine doing. That is the difference. News of the rescue spread across the empire. Governor Hyunwoo sent detailed reports to the capital, praising Yuna's methods. Other governors began sending requests for her assistance. Back on the capital world, Emperor Kale read the reports with growing satisfaction. Yuna had proven herself beyond any doubt. The message came while Yuna was still on Taehan 7, helping implement long-term improvements to the mining operations. Emperor Kale's personal seal appeared on her datapad, marking it as urgent imperial business. Agricultural world Mirai 3 faces imminent famine. Crop failures spreading across 3 continents. Millions at risk. Report there immediately. Yuna's hands began to shake as she read the message. She had organized libraries and armories. She had improved mining operations. But agriculture? She knew nothing about farming beyond what vegetables looked like in a market. Lord Taman found her sitting alone in her temporary quarters, staring at the message. I cannot do this, Yuna whispered. I am not qualified. People will die because I do not know what I am doing. Taman sat down across from her. What did you do when you did not know how to organize an armory? When you had never managed a mining operation? I learned. I asked questions, I listened to people who knew more than me. Then do that again, Taman said simply. You are not being sent there to have all the answers. You are being sent because you know how to find answers. 2 days later, they arrived on Maid 3. The planet should have been beautiful, rolling fields, rich soil, perfect climate. Instead, Una saw dying crops stretching to every horizon. The fields looked diseased, with plants wilting and brown patches that spread like infections. Governor Jay met them at the landing site. She was a younger dragon with copper scales that looked dull from stress. Her eyes had the haunted look of someone watching a disaster unfold in slow motion. Imperial Coordinator, Jay said formally, though her voice carried little hope. I must be honest. I requested help 6 months ago. The situation has only worsened since then. Our agricultural experts have tried everything they know. Nothing works. I do not know what you can possibly do that we have not already attempted. Show me everything, Una said, and introduce me to your farmers, both dragon and non-dragon. The first thing Una noticed was that the dragon agricultural experts and the human farmers barely spoke to each other. They worked the same fields but used completely different methods. The dragons relied on their traditional techniques perfected over centuries. The humans used the farming knowledge from their Earth heritage. Neither side listened to the other. Both blamed the other for the failures. Una spent 3 days touring farms, talking to everyone she could find. She asked dragon overseers about their techniques. She asked human farmers about their traditions. She spoke with insectoid workers who maintained the irrigation systems, and with the fungoid species who managed soil treatment facilities. Slowly, she began to see the real problem. This was not just about dying crops. This was about people who did not trust each other, did not communicate, and did not share knowledge. But she also began to see something else, evidence that the crop failures were not entirely natural. In one field, she found seed storage containers that had been deliberately contaminated. In another location, soil treatment chemicals were mixed incorrectly in ways that seemed intentional. Irrigation schedules had been changed without authorization, delivering too much water at wrong times. Someone was sabotaging the recovery efforts. Una showed her findings to Lord Taman and Governor Jay quietly, away from others. Who would do this? Jay looked sick. We are all on this planet together. If the crops fail, everyone starves, dragons included. Someone who wants Una to fail more than they want Maid 3 to succeed, Taman said grimly. He sent an encrypted message to Emperor Kale, explaining the situation. The response came within hours. Set a trap. Find the saboteurs. In the meantime, save the planet anyway. Una made a decision. She called for a planetary assembly. Every farmer, every agricultural worker, every species represented. Thousands gathered in the main settlement's meeting grounds. She stood before them, a small human woman addressing a crowd of dragons and other species, and spoke simply. I am not a farmer. I do not know your crops, your soil, your climate. But I know this, you are all experts in different ways. Dragon farmers know techniques perfected over centuries. Human farmers bring knowledge from Earth, one of the most agricultural worlds in known space. Insectoids understand pest ecology. Fungoids know soil chemistry better than anyone. She paused, looking across the crowd. But you are not working together. You are competing, blaming each other, refusing to share what you know. And while you fight, the crops die and everyone loses. An elderly human farmer named Yoonji stood up from the crowd. Her face was weathered from decades in the sun. The dragons think their methods are the only right methods. They do not listen to us. A dragon overseer named Daehyun rose in response. Human techniques are primitive. You refuse to accept that our species has farmed successfully for millennia. Stop. Yuna's voice cut through the rising argument. This planet does not care about our species' politics. The soil does not care if you are dragon or human. The crops do not care who plants them. This is a Maid 3 problem, not a dragon problem or a human problem. We work together or we all fail together. The crowd went silent. I propose something different, Una continued. Share your knowledge. Dragonfire techniques for rapid land preparation, paired with human crop rotation schedules. Insectoid pest management combined with dragon climate control. Every species contributes what they do best. She pulled out her datapad and projected a diagram. I want to create what I call a knowledge network. Farmers across the planet share real-time information. What is working, what is not, what problems they are facing. We adapt quickly based on what everyone learns. No more isolated communities struggling alone. That would require cooperation, an old dragon muttered. Yes? Yuna agreed. It would require all of us to set aside pride and fear and work for the common goal. Survival. Yunji stood up again. I will try it. My grandchildren live on this planet. I will work with anyone who has knowledge to share. Daehyun hesitated, then nodded slowly. If the alternative is watching everyone starve, I suppose cooperation is acceptable. More voices joined in agreement. Not everyone. Some remained skeptical or angry, but enough to begin. Over the next weeks, Yuna coordinated the largest collaborative farming effort in the planet's history. She organized working groups that mixed species deliberately. She set up communication channels for rapid information sharing. She created schedules that had different species working on tasks they were best suited for. Dragon strength prepared fields quickly. Human knowledge of crop rotation prevented soil depletion. Insectoid workers managed pests without chemicals. Fungoids adjusted soil chemistry with precision impossible for other species. The knowledge network began to function. When one farmer discovered a technique that worked, everyone knew within hours. When a problem emerged, multiple minds worked together to solve it. The saboteurs continued their work, but the distributed network adapted faster than they could destroy it. Contaminated seeds in one location? 3 other locations had backup supplies. Damaged irrigation in one field? Neighbors adjusted their systems to compensate. Meanwhile, Lord Taman and his soldiers hunted the saboteurs. They tracked the pattern of sabotage carefully, setting up surveillance, following supply chains. Finally, they traced everything to a warehouse where emergency seed reserves were stored. Taman raided the warehouse with his best warriors. They caught 5 conspirators in the act of preparing to destroy the last major seed reserve, the final blow that would ensure complete famine. The leader wore a dragon military uniform. His name was Sangwoo, a decorated war hero. Under interrogation, he confessed everything.
He had been following orders from High
Counselor Bora. The plan was to make Yuna fail so spectacularly that human methods would be discredited forever. She wanted proof that elevating lesser species leads to disaster, Sangwoo said bitterly. Mirai 3 was supposed to be that proof. The evidence was sent directly to Emperor Kyle. His response was immediate. He would come to Mirai 3 personally. Emperor Kale arrived as the first new crops began to show promising growth. He summoned High Counselor Bora to appear before the entire planetary council. She arrived with her head high, showing no shame. You deliberately sabotaged an entire world, Kale said, his voice deadly calm. You risked millions of lives to prove a political point. Explain yourself. Bora stood proud before him. Our empire was built on dragon supremacy. That is our foundation, our strength, our identity. This human threatens to tear down everything we have built. I did what was necessary to preserve our way of life. Our way of life? Kale's voice rose. Let me tell you about our way of life. Since Yuna began her work, efficiency across the empire has improved 47%. Resource waste is down by half. Interspecies cooperation is at the highest level in recorded history. Worker satisfaction has improved dramatically. Our recent war ended 3 months early because improved logistics kept our armies better supplied than ever before. He stood to his full height, towering over everyone. You ask what we are? We are an empire that has survived 800 years because we are strong. But strength without wisdom is just brutality. Strength without adaptability leads to extinction. This human has shown us that true strength lies in using every resource wisely, including the knowledge and capabilities of every species in our empire. He pointed one clawed finger at Bora.